Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled "Squatters parked on my property and blocked my garage. I got them towed. They demand I pay the fee." The house next to mine was vacant for a good while since the housing market here was really bad at the time. I guess once it had been left empty long enough, it was only a matter of time before people started living there one way or another. At first I actually thought that we had new neighbors because these people were not the first thing that would jump into my mind when I thought of squatters. I don't know if I have TV to thank for this, but when I imagined squatters, I had a certain mental image where I could pick them out of a crowd. These just looked like normal neighbors that walked out in clean clothing and talked to everyone. They did not seem to be hiding anything. When I saw their lights out at night, sometimes I would just assume they were out and liked to save on electricity. After a while though, the signs that they were squatters became more and more obvious. They did not care about maintaining the property, and once even asked to borrow my hose, which is when I realized they did not have water. Still, I was a firm believer of it if it doesn't concern me to just stay out of it. I was not going to pointlessly get myself involved with these people squatting next door. As far as neighbors go, they were not the worst, and as far as I could tell, they were at least cleaning their clothing and themselves. Things slowly devolved over time though, especially once these squatter neighbors ended up getting a car. I don't know what they did to get their money, and I have a good feeling I don't want to. It was enough for them to get a car though, and I learned that it was their car in a very confusing way. It was 6 in the morning, and I was as usual a zombie getting back into my car to go to work. I parked in my garage, and when I went to back out, I found that it was not possible. The squatters had parked their car in the weirdest way that I've ever seen in my life. The best way to describe it would be that they parked diagonally and with half their car on my property and the other half by the curb. Obviously, I had no way to get out now, and this car was beyond illegally parked. I had never seen this car before, and I was not about to go knocking on doors at 6 AM to try and find out who knew something about this car. My guess at the time was that somebody had a guest stay over and they were so drunk they did not notice how they parked, or they just could not drive. Either way, it was not happening. So I called for a tow truck because the car was on my property without permission after all. I was an hour late for work and my boss was not happy with me, and I was having too much of a brain fog to even take a picture to show him. So I was in a bad mood the entire day about this stupid car and how it got me in trouble at work. Now, the answer did not come until the next day, which was a weekend, meaning I was not actually home. Someone started banging on my door so aggressively that my cat jumped straight up in the air and sprinted across the house. He usually just sleeps and does not care about anything, but he clearly sensed something I was not able to. Standing at my doorstep were my squatter neighbors, and they looked furious. I did not even put 2 and 2 together and think it could have been their car because I thought they did not have one. I did not even have time to be confused because the guy just started screaming the moment he saw my face. "Squatter, what the hell happened to my car?" "Me? Your car was..." He cut me off. "Squatter, I know it was right here exactly. I came back yesterday and boom, it was gone." "Me? Yes, I saw your car in the morning when I..." He cut me off again. "Squatter, see, that is why I left it here. I know you would see it and keep an eye on it, and now it's just gone." "Me? Let me finish please. It was blocking my garage and I couldn't get my car out to go to work, so I called the company and had it towed away, since it was parked illegally and trapping me in." "Squatter, why didn't you just come and tell me?" "Me? I have never seen this car before. I had no way to know it belonged to you. Look, if you call that number, I'm sure that they still have your car and you can go get it back." I have no idea why this man thought I would keep an eye on it without even asking me and thinking that was a good place to leave the car. He kept talking about how since I was the one that caused the mess, I needed to pay whatever fee it would cost to get the car back. I was not doing that, and it caused this guy to go on a huge rant. He was just insulting me like crazy while the woman, who I assume was his wife, just stood there and watched. When he lost his breath, she started in about how I think I'm better than them because I suckered into actually paying for my house. What they didn't know was that I had a porch camera that picked up audio, so not only was I not going to pay a cent to them to get their car, but I was also going to get rid of them. I know the squatter laws vary all over the place, but the biggest hoop to jump through here is being able to prove that they don't actually pay to live there. So having that video with them basically admitting they are squatting is like digital gold. I also may have told the other neighbors about the crazy squatters living next to me and how I found out they were staying illegally and went to my door yelling at me. So multiple complaints got called in, and with my evidence the sheriff was soon escorting them off the premises. I have no idea what happened to their car, but I just wish all the horrible neighbors in these kinds of stories could end this way. If he did not want to act like a crazy person, he might have gotten away with living next door for a long time before getting the boot. After the stunt he pulled with blocking me in and then demanding I pay for the car fees, I was not dealing with him anymore. They will probably go and find somewhere else to squat, and I just hope they don't mess with any other innocent people. I understand that times are hard and housing is more expensive than it really needs to be, but if you are doing something that requires you to keep a low profile, then maybe getting your car towed and screaming at the neighbor is not the best way to do that. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious, what do you think about squatters, especially during the pandemic, aka hard times? I gotta say, no matter how hard the times are, and especially the people in this story did not seem like they are super poor people or something, I mean they even have a car, I would say that I'm definitely not a supporter of squatting. Let us know what you think in the comments, and while you're at it, I would really appreciate it if you could also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and like the video if you want to support me. Thank you so much in advance, your help is very much appreciated. The next one is titled, "The Neighborhood Will Thank Me." Some kid got gifted a lifted truck, cuts the cats on it, and has been gunning it to high school for no joke the last 3 years every morning. His truck is so loud it shakes my room, and he floors it past my house every day and has woken me up literally over 100 times. My dad actually had his personal number when I brought it up to him. The kid sold some firewood last year and he had it saved. After one particularly rude awakening and not being the person to call the cops on a loud truck, I demanded it from him. I simply told him like a week and a half ago, "Hey color truck, can you stop gunning your illegally modified vehicle past my house every morning and waking up my entire family? We literally bought firewood from you. You cut out the cats to get attention, and here is your attention. Shut up, getting old," his name. He asked if I minded telling him where I lived. I said I do mind, shut up or the key won't turn one morning. I typed this as he has not woken me up since and stopped gunning it while in the neighborhood, just passed by Baby Soft, your friendly neighborhood person with audio hypersensitivity. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm really not sure who would decat their vehicle. I certainly never did that on my motorcycle. I would never do such things. However, I guess it's a little bit different on cars versus motorcycles, because I think the only vehicles that Thai people really decat are the obnoxious, extremely dangerous driving pickup trucks and minivans. And those are already bad enough. And the next one is titled, "Dealing with a Neighborhood Karen." I live in a nice neighborhood. Unfortunately, I have a lot of entitled and obnoxious neighbors. Most of the households here have kids, babies up through high schoolers, and it is common to see children playing outside. Frustrated parents in my neighborhood put out signs like "Slow, children playing, drive like your kids live here," etc. Why? Many of our entitled neighbors drive like they are trying to hit someone. California allows anyone to request a driver be re-examined. I have done it before when my grandma got dementia and did not know where she was half the time. One day while I was driving home, a neighbor I will call Slob Karen illegally cut me off. I had the right of way. She was supposed to stop at a stop sign but gunned it and pulled her giant SUV in front of me instead. She came very close to hitting my much smaller car. Side note, a lot of my SUV driving neighbors have an irrational hatred of little economy sedans, and it really shows in the way they drive. I had to slam on my brakes, I honked, she gave me the finger with both hands while driving. She proceeded to drive well over the speed limit in a part of our neighborhood where children are usually playing outside at that hour. I sent the DMV a request for driver re-examination the next day. I did not see Slop Karen driving for a few months. I won't ever know what the DMV did, but I hope she has learned a lesson about driving like a jerk. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm actually fascinated by that law that you can request people to be re-examined when it comes to driving. That's definitely a strange law, but I'm not sure if I'm for it or against it. I'm curious how the process really works. Like, if I don't like my neighbor, can I just report him and he must do the examination again? If you know how it works, let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled, I Got Epic Revenge. For a bit of background, my next door neighbor is/was a college student. She lives with our actual neighbor, her boyfriend. The typical crazy college kid. Weekend parties, drinking on her patio all hours of the night, and weird hours. You know the drill. I figured she was trying to experience college life, so why not? You do you, lady. Anyways, one summer night last year, she was sitting out on her back patio with her girlfriends doing their drunk thing. I am out wrapping up on some stuff with my toddler daughter. She at the time had a medical thing going on that caused her to walk a little weird. Nothing life-altering and something that would heal with time. She did have a weeble waddle to her, especially when running. Sometimes she would fall right over. She was out running around with the dog and the ladies next door were waving and telling her how cute she was. All good so far. We go back inside and I hand her off real quick to the husband. I wanna go to the bedroom real fast to change the sheets for bed later. I hurried up. Now to set the scene, my bedroom is the closest to the patio next door. The windows are open because it gets super hot in there even with AC during the day and the lights off. I can do this by the light of the hallway, I figure. I can clearly hear what they are talking about next door.
Do you see the way she was walking? What a little hustler, my little hustler, haha.
Sung to the cheerful tune of My Little Pony, I guess that was what my kid had been wearing. This was followed by sounds I suppose my neighbor felt a mentally challenged child would make, and uproarious laughter. No, you effin' did not. They did not realize anyone could hear them, but I had the lights flipped on and was at the window and shouting in record time. Stay right there, I screamed at them. Dead silence as they realized someone heard them. I came flying down the stairs where I am intercepted by my husband that has no idea what the screaming was about. At this point I am so mad that I just burst out into tears when telling him. We both decide it would be better to wait to confront until tomorrow. Everyone next door is wasted and there is no way of telling just how many people she has over. Besides, when we looked outside, it seems like they have packed it in for the night. Not long after this, we all go to bed. My husband was outside having a last smoke before sleep. Next door idiot had sent her boyfriend out to put the fire pit out. I guess she was too afraid to do it herself as she usually would. My husband and he were talking. Boyfriend, that got crazy earlier, huh? Husband, well, your girlfriend did make fun of a child, so understanding that as her parents we are upset shouldn't be too hard. Boyfriend, ah man, you know, how girls that age, my neighbor happens to date much younger women, no judgment, but it is not a defense for how they acted, are when they are drinking. They say stuff and don't mean it. All little girls are like that when drunk. And by the way guys, that makes this boyfriend not look like in a good light, I gotta say. Anyway, husband, I have drank with a lot of women, and I've never heard of one of them making fun of a kid behind their back. A 2-year-old no less. So yeah, that excuse does not fly with me. Boyfriend, look dude, I don't want no drama. Just let it go. Husband, sure, just let your girlfriend know we are waiting on her heartfelt apology. Boyfriend, whatever. Needless to say, boyfriend is going to go with whatever keeps getting him drunk girls. Not a drop of compassion even though he is a nurse. Really awesome. I hope you don't work in the children's ward, douchebag. Husband came in after that. I waited for a week to confront her about it because I thought that what she did was so shameless that she would surely feel bad. But nope, I happened to be outside one day watering when she was coming back from wherever. Gave her the stare down. All she could muster was a "Got a problem, girl? Do something about it," before making her way inside. The revenge. It turns out that little Miss My Poop Does Not Stink wanted to be a policewoman in our town. How do I know? They sent a letter to people on our street to feel her out before accepting her into their program. Just a standard questionnaire asking about our dear neighbor friend. Do you have an opinion on why or why not your neighbor would not make a good officer of the law? Why, yes, I do. I wrote an essay, you guys, complete with photos of her lovely patio covered in cans and bottles from the night before. Their dogs having to sit outside in the pouring rain all day. I guess animal control is too busy around here for that, and I always got a "we will look into it" response. How do you feel about someone on your force that makes fun of kids with handicaps who could possibly show up to work drunk? I sent it back in and just forgot about it. It was petty, yes, but felt so good. I say this because last night I heard her crying to one of her buddies about how she couldn't seem to break into the local police force, which had been the whole reason she had pursued her major in college. She is not sure what to do now. Now, I'm not sure if my letter did it. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I'm not sure if they tell you why you are not being considered other than you are not. In that moment though, I felt vindicated. F you, you soulless Karen. I hope those jokes at my kid's expense was worth it. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would definitely agree, a person that makes fun of children in general, but especially children with disabilities, certainly does not belong in the police force. That simply shows a clear lack of respect and empathy. Let us know what you think about this story in the comments. Either way, the next one is titled, "So I lived in a condo building, nothing fancy, our neighbor who was on the board had birds." Annoying squawking birds. The HOA has a no pet rule that was put in after she moved in, so her stupid birds were grandfathered in. Whatever. Then she writes up something asking us to only allow birds as pets because she wants more birds. I desperately wanted a dog, so I asked her to consider having a pet policy that included common house pets like dogs and cats because a just bird policy doesn't really make a lot of sense. No, she went with just birds. So I wrote up a rebuttal about all the reasons birds are terrible pets. Can you imagine several people per floor in our non-soundproof units with birds? And by the way guys, that is my worst nightmare. Anyway, I almost got fined for a solicitation because I left a stack of copies of my letter to the board near the mailboxes because they wouldn't allow me to read it at a meeting. Eventually, it was found out that our current no pets policy was void because it wasn't actually a bylaw, it was just something they tacked into the paperwork unofficially. So the lady comes to my door one day and tells me I can get a dog. I am over the moon. I get a dog like 2 days later. She then accuses my dog of making every single stain on every single piece of carpet in the place, regardless of proof. She sent vague but creepy letters about how we were being carefully watched and how we could incur fees for any damage on the property. Anytime a flower had been trampled on or a patch of dead grass was discovered, it was my dog's fault. It was miserable, we moved out. And the next one goes like this. When I lived with my parents back a few years ago, they moved into a very nice large house in a smallish community that had an HOA. Initially, the HOA told my parents as well as all our neighbors that every month they had to pay a fee. So the first month my parents were billed for the HOA fees and paid it, and then after a couple months there were no bills or notices at all that told my parents they needed to pay a fee. They even called to make sure they didn't miss any payments, and the company in charge of handling the payments said that they were all good. Fast forward a few years and the HOA calls a meeting for the community and tells everyone that they are all delinquent on their HOA fees and wanted to charge my parents and their neighbors back pay plus interest. Of course, everyone was extremely upset, especially the couple who were underwater on their house. Anyways, the HOA got chewed out and had legal action to deal with, so now they are deciding to use a different company to handle their HOA fee payments. And the next one, not quite an HOA, but people that want to be one and try to act like one but don't have any real authority or money to back them. I forgot what they are officially called, but my dad and I refer to them as the Busybody Committee, BBC, since it is a bunch of retired old men that have nothing better to do. When my dad and stepmom bought their current house about 5 years ago, they specifically chose one that was out in the county, so they didn't have to deal with stuff like an HOA. It was also a convenient location thanks to being about halfway between San Antonio, where my stepmom worked, and the city they had lived in before moving. The house was semi-run down, not about to fall apart or anything, but hadn't been kept up or updated since probably the 80s. Some of the stupid stuff the BBC complained about, specifically our house. The color was not a good color. There was nothing stating what houses had to be painted, since again, no HOA or bylaws, and my dad and stepmom had specifically chosen the colors to have the house blend into the surrounding trees and things. Specifically, the trim was dark brown, main siding was dark green, and brick was white. I've compared it to looking kind of like mint chocolate chip ice cream, and it looked really nice. We had too many rundown cars parked in the yard. Okay, this might have been true, but most of them were tucked away behind trees and parked in a 3-car garage built just for them and could only be seen if you entered the property and went looking for them. So my dad and I moved the ones not in the garage, opened the back gate and attached a chain to his tractor and hauled them into the backyard where they were more obvious. Made the BBC happy and they stopped sending a guy to come complain about it. What pissed us off the most about the cars was that the next door neighbor has had at least one car parked right next to the gate of his yard. Entire yard is fenced in by a chain link fence instead of just the back with a for sale sign on it. He has multiple others in full view parked in his backyard, lots of rundown machinery, rarely mows in the back, and everything is in full view of the road. Does the BBC care? Nope. The aforementioned 3-car garage was angled wrong and needed to be changed. Keep in mind that we, meaning my dad, his brother who was an architect and designed it, me, my brother and stepbrother, built it ourselves and had angled it the way it was because it looked better from the road, and also my stepmom wanted to eventually put up solar panels, which by the way they did a couple of years ago, and the angle was perfect to catch the most sun. They also complained about the angle being wrong after the foundation was already poured, frame was up, and I believe we were in the middle of putting up the siding, which was painted the same green as the house. And their, suggestion was to tear the whole thing out, including the foundation, and start over. My dad basically ignored them and told them to F off without using those words because my dad does not cuss, also to give you an idea of how stupid and impossible it would be to tear the thing down and redo the foundation would be. If you don't know anything about the hill country, it is effin' hilly, hence the name, and there's about an inch of dirt covering rocks ranging in size from pebbles to boulders that make up the soil. To build the garage, my dad had to dig something like 20 feet into the side of a hill and 10 feet down to make it level with the driveway and put a retaining wall in and somehow manage to level out the foundation. There was no way he was redoing it because somebody said it didn't look right. They also complained about the metal sheeting we used for the roof, saying nobody else was using metal sheeting for a roof. My dad went around the neighborhood and counted about 15 houses, or probably 60 or so, that had metal roofs. He said that and they stopped complaining. My dad and stepmom never listened to their bullcrap because they had no power aside from occasionally threatening legal action that actually made some of the neighborhood fear them for some reason. But to give you an idea of how stupid and groundless that threat was, one time somebody pissed them off about something, forget what now, and they stuck notices in everybody's mailboxes saying what this guy did and they were going to take him to court over it. The problem was they didn't have the monies, and so they were asking for donations from everybody in the neighborhood to cover the legal fees. Our next door neighbors were a little scared of them, but went and talked to my dad, who said if they are begging for money, there's nothing to be afraid of, just ignore them. Haven't heard any stories about them in a while, but my stepmom found an awesome way to bring the neighborhood together by setting up a site specifically for the neighborhood, and people love it. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.